The end is finally in sight for Celia Daniels and Ray Walters in Emmerdale, but not before the village is dragged through one last, devastating nightmare. Since the moment they arrived, Celia and Ray have cast a long poisonous shadow over the Dales, quietly weaving a web of fear, manipulation, and violence that ensnared some of the village's most vulnerable residents. What began as sinister whispers about drugs and dodgy dealings soon escalated into something far more horrifying, a modern slavery operation that left lives shattered and families torn apart. Now, as the truth threatens to explode into the open, the pair's empire begins to crumble. But the damage they've inflicted may never fully heal, and not everyone is guaranteed to make it out alive. Celia and Ray's reign of terror began with April Windsor and Dylan Penders, two teenagers who were easy prey for the ruthless duo. At first, the danger appeared subtle: small jobs, quiet threats, the illusion of protection. But it soon became clear that Celia and Ray were running a drug operation that relied on fear and silence. For April, the nightmare escalated rapidly. After being attacked by Callum, a man who attempted to coerce her into sleeping with him, April believed she had killed him in self-defense. Racked with guilt and terror, she was vulnerable to manipulation, and Celia seized her moment. Reinforcing the lie that Callum was dead, Celia and Ray convinced April that only they could protect her from prison. It was a lie that chained her to them. Dylan, meanwhile, began to realize just how dangerous the situation was. But trying to escape Celia's grip proved almost fatal. When Dylan showed signs of becoming a rat, Ray Walters made an example of him. In one of the most shocking acts of violence the village has seen in years, Ray deliberately ran Dylan down with his car, injected him with drugs, and left him for dead. It was a cold, calculated message. Speak out, and you will not survive. The word ruthless barely scratches the surface. That single act of brutality changed everything. Going to the police was no longer an option. If Ray was capable of attempted murder to protect his operation, there was no telling what he might do next. When April finally found the courage to tell her parents some of the truth, including her belief that she had killed a man, the situation spiraled further out of control. Instead of backing off, Celia and Ray shifted their focus. Marlon Dingle and Rona Gosker became targets. Ray began extorting them for £2,000 a week, turning their lives into a relentless cycle of fear. Every knock at the door, every unknown car, every missed call became a potential threat. It felt as though there was no escape, no authority they could trust, no safe place left in the village. Desperation drove them to consider the unthinkable. At their lowest point, Marlon, Rona, and April even discussed going on the run. Leaving everything behind seemed like the only way to escape Celia's murderous clutches. Rona, increasingly frantic, went so far as to destroy her relationship with her own mother, Mary. In a cruel attempt to push her away from danger, Rona said things she could never take back. But even that sacrifice failed to keep Mary out of harm's reach. At the same time, Rona tried desperately to shield her best friend Laurel Thomas from Ray's influence, aware that Ray had already sunk his claws into her life. Simply surviving became a full-time job. And yet, just when hope seemed lost, cracks finally began to appear in Celia and Ray's operation. When April goes missing once again, the village is thrown into chaos. Everyone fears the worst. Suspicion and guilt ripple through the community as secrets begin to surface. Laurel is seen nervously hiding something in a drawer. Rona makes a mysterious phone call. Marlon sends a text he instantly regrets. Each of them knows something. Each of them is hiding something. And all of them are terrified that April has paid the ultimate price. The tension becomes unbearable until April finally reappears. April is found alive, though clearly shaken, with Ross Barton, who brings her home to her frantic parents. This time, there is no half-truth, no omissions, no fear-fueled silence. April tells them everything. She reveals the full extent of Celia and Ray's manipulation, the lies about Callum, the drugs, the threats, and the terror that has ruled her life for months. Most importantly, she makes a decision that changes everything. Enough is enough. Despite previously stopping Dylan from going to the police after Ray tried to kill him, April now insists that the truth must come out, no matter the consequences. Rona is terrified that involving the police will only escalate the danger. But April knows they have reached the point of no return. They have no choice. Once the secret is out, it spreads like wildfire. Bob Hope, unable to contain his outrage, takes it upon himself to tell anyone in the pub who will listen exactly what Celia and Ray have done. The scale of their crimes: drugs, blackmail, violence, exploitation, finally becomes public knowledge. The village reels in horror. But just when it seems the worst is over, another devastating revelation emerges. Rona realizes that one person still doesn't know the truth. Patty Kirk. With heartbreaking gentleness, she brings him into the house and explains what has really been happening to his father. Bear Wolf hasn't vanished by choice. He's been trapped nearby all this time, manipulated, isolated, and forced into unpaid labor as part of Celia and Ray's modern slavery operation. Patty is devastated, but the shock doesn't end there. Bear is missing. He hasn't come home. He hasn't been found. And with ominous scenes showing a body being dragged away off-screen, the unthinkable question looms large. Is Bear Wolf already dead? As the walls close in on Celia Daniels and Ray Walters, the village braces itself for the final fallout. Lies have been destroyed, trust has been shattered, and the scars left behind may never fully fade. With the truth finally exposed and a possible death hanging in the balance, Emmerdale stands on the brink of one of its darkest conclusions yet. Justice may be coming, but it may come far too late for everyone involved. As the realization that Bear Wolf was missing began to sink in, panic spread through the village like wildfire. What should have been a moment of relief, the exposure of Celia Daniels and Ray Walters, quickly curdled into dread. For Patty Kirk, the truth was almost impossible to process. His father had been right there, hidden in plain sight, suffering in silence. And now he was gone. Patty struggled to breathe as Rona's words echoed in his ears. Bear hadn't simply disappeared. He had been controlled, manipulated, and worked to exhaustion. And now there was a very real possibility that he had paid the ultimate price for knowing too much. Guilt washed over Patty in crushing waves. While he believed his father wanted nothing to do with him, Bear had been desperately clinging to the idea that his son had rejected him. The lies Celia told had destroyed more than freedom. They had destroyed hope. As police cars finally arrived in the village, the atmosphere shifted. Sirens cut through the air, drawing residents out of their homes and into the streets. Officers began questioning anyone connected to Celia and Ray, while the farmhouse at the center of the operation was cordoned off. What had once been whispered rumors was now an official investigation, one that could no longer be buried or ignored. Celia, however, was nowhere to be found. Ray Walters was brought in for questioning, his bravado long gone. Faced with mounting evidence and the sheer scale of what had been uncovered, the pressure on him was immense. For the first time, Ray wasn't barking threats or issuing ultimatums. He looked haunted, a man finally forced to confront the wreckage left in his wake. And as the hours dragged on, the truth began to unravel. Ray's loyalty to Celia finally shattered when detectives pressed him about Bear. Cornered and visibly shaken, Ray's silence spoke louder than any confession. His reluctance to answer one crucial question sent a chill through everyone in the room. Where was Bear Wolf? Search teams were dispatched, scouring the land surrounding the farm. Torches swept across fields, woodland, and ditches as the night closed in. Every rustle of leaves raised hope, or fear. For Patty, each passing minute felt like a lifetime. Then came the moment everyone had been dreading. a discovery was made on the edge of the estate, something heavy, something that had been dragged, not carried. The atmosphere turned deadly quiet as officers secured the area. Word spread quickly, though no one dared to say it out loud. A body had been found. Back in the village, news of the discovery rippled through the pub, leaving stunned silence in its wake. April froze when she heard, her worst fears crashing back all at once. This was what Celia had threatened. This was the price of telling the truth. Marlon wrapped his arms around his daughter as Rona fought back tears. They had escaped, but had bare paid the price for their freedom. Meanwhile, Celia's downfall loomed ever closer. Witnesses came forward. Financial records were uncovered. Survivors found their voices. The operation that had once thrived on secrecy collapsed under the weight of its own brutality. Celia Daniels, the architect of it all, was no longer untouchable. She was a fugitive. But justice, as Emmerdale has taught time and again, is rarely simple. As the identity of the body remained unconfirmed, hope flickered, fragile but alive. Could Bear still be out there, or had Celia ensured her secrets were buried forever? With Ray facing charges and Celia on the run, the village stood united in grief, anger, and resolve.